my wedding finger, and he's like, "When are we gonna do this?" I'm all,
It's after four
"You
months.
asking me to, is that a proposal?" And
Right.
so I was like, he goes, "Yeah," and he goes, like, "I love you, and like I want us to get married. How do you feel about that?" And I was like, 100% yes. I didn't stall, I didn't stutter, I didn't
You
pause.
knew. You knew.
No, I knew it. And so,
Wow.
100%. But I'm like, how does this work? And he's like,
Right.
so he's like, we have a minister come in, you get to bring a witness in. Um, and he goes, and then we get to have a family visit after we get married.
Okay.
So he'd already had one scheduled with his mom. And so what he did was he scheduled me after we got married, and then we took his mom off the thing.
The
So he'd already
list.
had one
Hmm.
scheduled. So we got one a lot sooner than most people would after they got married. Plus, Mitch had his ways of doing stuff. Anyway, um, we did. We got married in this, and I'll put pictures of our wedding day.
Wow.
Then, it was. I'm totally talking about freaking out. I was totally freaking out. Same thing, same fears. What's going to happen? Is something going to cancel? Is the weather going to be bad? And they're going to change some bullshit thing, whatever. It's always the anticipation of what could happen and go wrong.
What's bad? Right. Now,
Yeah.
but it had nothing to do. You were totally on board. You knew exactly
Totally.
in terms of a personal type thing.
Yeah.
Did you? I mean, those couple of visits that you had. I mean, were they always good visits?
Hmm.
They were always good. It was
Always.
all right. Okay.
And
Any
and and
any
and then I brought my daughter, right? So obviously after I had, it's funny because now if you asked me if I would do that now, I don't know.
mm,
I really don't know the answer to that because it's not the best place to bring your kids into, obviously.
right.
But you want your kids to have a relationship. When are we going to do this? I'm all,
This is after four
"You
months.
asking me to, is that a proposal?" And
Right.
so I was like, he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, like, "I love you. And like, I want us to get married. How do you feel about that?" And I was like, 100% yes. I didn't stall, I didn't stutter, I didn't
You
pause.
knew. You knew.
No, I knew it. And so,
Wow.
100%. But I'm like, how does this work? And he's like,
Right.
so he's like, we have a minister come in, you get to bring a witness in. Um, and he goes, and then we get to have a family visit after we get married. So
Okay.
he already had one scheduled with his mom. And so what he did was he scheduled me after we got married, and then we took his mom off the thing.
The
So he'd already
list.
had one
Hmm.
scheduled. So we got one a lot sooner than most people would after they got married. Plus, Mitch had his ways of doing stuff. Anyway, um, we did. We got married in this, and I'll put pictures of our wedding day.
Wow.
Then, it was. I'm totally talking about freaking out. I was totally freaking out. Same thing, same fears. What's going to happen? Is something going to cancel? Is the weather going to be bad? And they're going to change some bullshit thing, whatever. It's always the anticipation of what could happen and go wrong.
What's bad? Right. Now,
Yeah.
but it had nothing to do. You were totally on board. You knew exactly
Totally.
in terms of a personal type thing.
Yeah.
Did you? I mean, those couple of visits that you had. I mean, were they always good visits?
Hmm.
They were always good. It was
Always.
all right. Okay.
And and
Any
and then I brought my daughter, right? So obviously after I had, it's funny because now if you asked me if I would do that now, I don't know.
mm,
I really don't know the answer to that because it's not the best place to bring your kids into, obviously.
right.
But you want your kids to have a relationship so with their
Absolutely.
parents, right?
Absolutely.
And I knew Mitch was going to be Nicole's stepdad to me. And
Okay.
so,
Hmm.
so I brought Nicole in. My daughter was extremely attached to me and super jealous, even at two and a
Of
half.
course. No.
And
Of
so
course.
she
Of
was
course.
very
Of course.
territorial. And so at first it was rough. But as time went by, she adored him. And he, how you can't kids recognize real 100%. Do you mean? And
Yes.
so she really gravitated to him, and he was so good with her. And I like it still chokes me up now because like he was just really, really amazing with her. And looked out for her and made sure that she felt loved. And, that's a side of Mitch that obviously a lot of our viewers don't get to see. And he was he was amazing with her. And they built this amazing relationship that has lasted now for, she's almost 36.
Wow.
And so,
That's fantastic.
it's fantastic.
Yeah,
Jimmy,
that is. Well, it's funny. You say that a lot of people don't maybe not think that, but I'm going to buck you on that for a
okay,
second
okay,
because you do see, you see it. I mean, when he tells the stories, of course, he tells it a certain way, and he has that like. It could be like sometimes he has that like sinister laugh, the laugh sometimes,
yeah,
but that's him. That's the big, his macho, his thing. But that
yeah,
he has to be that way, and I get that. But when he thanks people,
oh
when
yeah,
when his no when people come on the live on Wednesdays or whenever,
yeah,
and you say so and so is on the line. Yeah, I mean, you could see, he's just like, hey, man, how he's
yeah.
so. There's a warmth there you would never ever think
True.
is
That
there.
I agree with you
So
100%.
you
Yeah,
probably, I mean,
I
obviously
do.
you got that right
Yeah,
away, and so
I
did
did.
Nicole.
I totally did. And I was like, just because he looks this way doesn't mean that he's not humble and he's not whatever. But what's kind of interesting, that I've learned since he's been out, is that, I know we're gonna get to this, but he lived two different lives, and he lived the life inside, and he lived a life with us, even though we were in the same physical location of the prison. So when he'd come out in his visiting room, we didn't talk a lot about, like, you know, who got in what fight, who beat who down, who was selling what, who was doing what, who was. We didn't really. He didn't really talk about that. So when he came out, it was really like, what are you guys doing? Like, how's Nicole doing in school? How are you doing at work? And believe me, at 24, I was full of the drama. And so I'd be like, oh my God, you don't know what this girl did today at work, and
Of
this bitch,
course,
blah, blah, blah. And that was kind of the way that, you know what I mean? And
right.
so, but Mitch had this weird, like, it wasn't weird. I felt like he would say to me, Adrian, like, you can come in here and you'll say to me, like, so and so told so and so that somebody was doing this. He goes, people in here get killed for that. And it just really kind of made my change my perspective of what it was like for him when he went back in through that door back into the house. Do you mean so? But yeah, he is definitely, um, yeah, he's an incredible person, and I knew that. And so, like I said, so I said yes. Him and Nicole had a good relationship. I would take her. So we used to take her on like every third family visit that we would go on. We would bring her. I mean, so, that was the only type of normalcy we had being in.
Right.
That's
Interesting.
the only time you feel somewhat, you cook dinner together. You're like,
Of course.
you would take the kids on the swing. We play with Nicole outside. Like, it was like, it was the only sense of normalcy for him and us as a family. And that's a thing that people I don't think really realize, is that, I was like, you want these guys to be successful when they get out of prison, but if you take those types of things away from them, how can they be? Like, you
Yeah.
take all the things that they love and all the things, and how can they be? How can they be socially, but that's the one thing about Mitch, is that he is, uh Mitch can fit in any situation, observe the situation before he goes. He has an innate sense about people also, that I don't always get right, but he does probably about 99% of the time. Um, and he always has that voice that's like, I don't know about that person. When I'm like, oh, that person's really cool and whatever, and he's like, not so sure about that. So, yeah. So,
Wow. So sociologically speaking, you really were a stabilizing force to him where he was able to separate what he had to deal with on one hand, and then he was able to come to fruition on the other,
Right.
which I'm sure made it a little more tolerable for him
Yeah.
in many ways. How about I know he got moved many
He
different
did.
times.
He did.
How did that play in terms of you being able to go? Was it further away at times? What I know, Donovan, the different Tracy, all those different places. You had to kind of get your act together to go and visit. And
Yeah.
what was what was the regularity of seeing you? You talked all the time. That I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing is, at Vacaville was easy. I was 20 minutes away. I don't know, 40 maybe at the most.
That's nothing.
Easy, even with bad weather, whatever, fine. It's not a big deal. Um, when he went to Donovan, that was the furthest, right? So it's on the border. I always get the names of them still confused. So I think Donovan was the one that's on the border of San Diego. And
That's further south. That was further south.
yeah, way south, like
Mm-hmm.
way south. And so I drove, and it took me 11 hours from Stockton to go see him.
Wow.
But he was always, I would stay with like friends of his wives, um, or whatever. So, and they were always like super hospitable, really cool. And one thing I just want to mention is that when Mitch was in Vacaville, I got to know a girl. Her name was Kathy. She has since passed on, and she kind of mentored me. Besides Pam, and she was older than me. She was a friend of Mitch's. She was Mitch's Sally's wife, Dirty Dennis, the one he always talks about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She and I spent a lot of time together with our kids, and she had an older daughter, and she kind of schooled me about what to do, what not to do, who to talk to, who not to talk to. But it was interesting because at one point she said to me, I don't recommend this for you. She's like, I love you and I love Smiley. But she's like, I don't think he's going to get out. Like, I just don't, and she said, I'm not saying that because I think any less of him. She's like, but I have been doing this for 20 something years.
Wow.
She's like, and, I was just like, wow. And she's like, just want, I want better things for
For
you
you,
of
yeah.
doing this and Nicole and whatever. So,
How long was it? How long were you and Mitch together at the time that
we
Kathy?
had been together for, I'm going to say maybe 2 years, 2 or 3 years. And that's when Mitch started getting shuffled around. And so, it is hard because like Folsom was the worst. That prison sucked. I mean,
Mhm.
just the way they treat people, they treat everybody like a freaking criminal. And just the way they look down on you. Just the guards would just be like just jerks, and they would make you wait longer. It was just crazy.
Yeah,
And
so she was protecting
it
you.
does start to wear on you. Like, I haven't thought about that for a long time. It does start to wear on you for
Right,
sure.
right,
If they were on lockdown and you went, like, you wouldn't get to see them, or you
right.
might get to see them for like 45 minutes. The good thing is that Mitch and I never had to meet behind glass ever. It
Really?
was always a physical contact visit. But it's hard. It's hard. I was young. Mitch was young. Life is happening out here, right, as they're in there. And it starts, you have problems at work, friends, kid problems, whatever. And it's
Real
not like
life.
you can just like call somebody being like, God, my day is really shitty. I'm really stressed out.
Of
I don't know what
course,
to
of
do. You
course.
have to wait,
Did
right?
it ever? I'm not gonna say did it ever. I'm sure it got you quite a bit.
Yeah.
How did you? How did you deal with it? How did you cope? How did you get through with it without doing anything, detrimental
Yeah,
to
I would
yourself?
say and sometimes I didn't. And what I mean by that is that I would, if something was very stressful or whatever that happened, um, I started, I would go out with my friends. I would, um, and I would kind of forget about it. Do you know what I mean? Like I would just be like, it's weird. I used to say this, like it was like being married and being single at the same time.
Right, right,
Right?
right.
Right?
Yeah,
So I was
yeah,
like, and what I mean by being single is I don't mean like you go out and do whatever. I
yeah.
just mean by like when I'd go out with my friends, you know, uh it would just be like I wasn't, like you're because he's in prison. Do you know what I mean? And it's not like he's at home. It just was a weird dynamic. Do you know what I
Mm.
mean? So
I
uh,
understand.
it's just it was a really strange.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost kind of like, I guess I'm married 35 years also.
Yeah,
So if you're married and you have, you go to see a friend of yours or
right,
something.
right,
So you go to see a friend of yours, and
yeah,
whatever happens, and you come back, you come home, but you
right,
obviously your partner's there. In this case, your partner wasn't there, but you
right,
were free to still kind of do even more on your own. I'm
right.
not
And Mitch
saying bad,
was
good. I'm not
totally
saying
supportive about like he'd be like, you know what,
go.
you live out there.
He
Do you know
did.
what I mean?
He
I
did.
live in here. So he's like, so if you want to go out with your friends and party it up, blah blah blah, by all means do that. Do you know what I
But
mean?
he
And so
knew you were. But he deep down inside, he
yeah,
must have known that
yeah,
you were solid
100%.
security like that,
Yeah,
because that's major. I mean, I'm assuming that any most partners, that's the first thing they're going to say is,
right,
well, I don't trust them,
right.
and then it goes down the road. But in this case, it was not that on both
No,
ends.
no, I don't think it was. And I also think that he was not. Mitch just has never been like a jealous kind of guy. That's just
Hmm.
not his. That's just not his deal. It's
That's
and
rare.
because we've always been like we're here because we want to be, right? Not because you have to be.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I never felt that kind of like pressure, like you can't do this or you can't whatever. He never made me feel like that. And so he's very confident in himself, and I think that I don't think at 24 I was.
Right. That helped you.
Um,
That
yeah.
helped you. I
So
think that showed you. So he. It's funny. We say now you're. We think, and you
yeah,
are, the
yeah,
stabilizing. It's interesting. Early on,
yeah,
he was,
for sure.
and then it's taken its time, a couple of different bumps here and there, and now it's come to the point where you both are, of course, but you are as well out here. That's, I think, another pivotal moment
For sure.
in the whole thing. All right, so Kathy says protecting you. Yeah, you're
Yeah,
not cut out. Oh, you're not. You're not. It's not for you.
yeah.
Tell us. Take us from there.
So I just start kind of like I'm tripping on that. Like I'm just like,
Yeah.
I look at her with Dennis and I'm thinking to myself, dude, wow, that's like, that's a crazy thing. And Mitch and I are like, this is maybe I'm just gonna ballpark. I really don't know what year this was because, but we just start. Mitch is getting moved around. We're not like, we're not seeing each other as much. Um, we're not talking as much. And I just get this like feeling like I don't want to say he's just not as communicative as normal.
Got you.
And there was a lot going on in my life. There was a lot going on where he was. And so, make a long story short, it was a process, but he's like, you know, I love you. But I understand, you're 28 or 29, how whatever old, 30, whatever old I was. And he's like, I think you deserve better. I think we need to just like not do this.
His
And
call. So this was his call on this one.
yeah, yeah.
So
And it was
Mitch
a
is calling.
multitude
He said he loves you.
but there was a multitude of reasons. I felt like on his side and on my side. And so again, I'm young and he's young and whatever. So I know one of the questions you were going to ask me was like one of the worst times that I was in, that he was in prison. So I go to see him. He is in Tracy at this point, and Mitch comes out. I waited for like it seemed like an eternity, and Mitch walks out, comes out of the prison door, And he literally walks up. And again, it was just a very confusing time for both of us. And he comes out and he puts his wedding ring on the table in front of me. And he turns and he walks away.
Wow.
And
Wait,
I literally
you lost it. Did you lose
I
it?
I'm sitting there by myself, right? I'm not in there with somebody, and I just start like I could feel the lump in my throat, right? And I knew this was coming. Like I knew it was coming.
Right, but you didn't expect
And
it to be that. That was not the scene you played
yeah, and
out.
it wasn't dramatic, but dramatic to me. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
And
it's
so
pretty dramatic the way you said it. Just said
yeah,
it. It's pretty
yeah.
dramatic.
So I walk out, I sit in the car for like 20 minutes, I bawl my eyes out.
Of course.
I'm like, okay. Like I was like, okay, all right, whatever. And so I'm like, I can do this. I can do this. And so it was very Mitch and I were very on and off. Like we would not talk and then we would talk. And then
Wait a
I
minute.
would,
So hold on.
you
So
know,
so this was he comes
yeah,
out. It was a visit,
yeah,
and within the first 30 seconds of the visit, comes out, ring, table.
yeah,
You're flipping. He turns around,
yeah,
and that's it.
right.
And you knew deep down inside. So what? I mean, did you ever talk about later on, or think? I'm sure you did. I mean,
Yeah.
why and how he made that delivery? Obviously he just couldn't bear to
It
do
wasn't
anything
so
else.
let me be clear. There was a lot that led up to that. And it wasn't just like it wasn't like I didn't expect it. It wasn't like I knew we weren't going there. But the thing was is that Mitch has a very uh his lines are very clear.
Yeah, he's black and
And
white. He's black and white. He's black and
and
white. He's black
so
and white. He
yeah,
is. He is. He is.
yeah. And I felt like at that time we were getting, we were talking a lot about, after you get denied from parole so many times,
Right. We'll talk about that. Okay. We'll talk
you
about that.
start, we start at, in the beginning, you're like, oh, like he's gonna get out, oh, he's gonna get out, oh, he's gonna get out, and then it just starts. It's very heavy. I mean, it's very like you
No,
don't
it's
want to
brutal. It's
add to the
brutal.
shit that he's already going through, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so we were both very aware of that. And I almost feel like, he was very honest with me about, sometimes it is easier to do your time on your own than to be
Sure.
married and to have someone else.
Less of a responsibility. Less responsibility. Did
Absolutely.
you ever? Did you
You know,
ever think of talking to anybody therapy wise? Because you were studying. You just kind of you weren't from that. You weren't from
no,
that. Right. You
yeah,
just kind
no.
of you were going to
It
deal
was
yourself.
like, Mitch in some ways was definitely my therapist.
Yeah.
I was I don't I was a drama queen when I was in my 20s, no
Mhm.
doubt. I was
Mhm.
very like again, real knee jerk, real like, very intense, and
Impulsive. Again.
very impulsive. And
Again. So that's your personality, right?
my daughter still, and it's funny because my daughter and I are complete opposites.
Right.
I'm still impulsive. And
Yeah. No.
I
Yeah.
guess
That's your personality.
it's more controlled. And so
Of
my
course.
daughter is very like structured and she's very like she plans everything and she's got calendars and she's got sticky notes and she has like everything. And so she'll call me and she'll be like, Mom, she's like, I'm just gonna do this. And she goes, I'm just gonna be spontaneous and be like you. So
I love it.
so anyways, I think, you know, um, 32 years is a long time. And Mitch and I went through our ebbs and flows in those 32
Of
years.
course.
And there was again, you're talking mega communication, right? You're talking on the phone. You're going in to see each other. If we weren't seeing each other, he would write me letters. He would write my daughter letters when she he wrote her letters anyway. So that was one thing. Again, like I said, my mom said he was the most consistent thing in my life. So even if we weren't talking, he was talking to Nicole. If we weren't, they were always in contact. And she wrote him back. And so I always had this connection. I just thought about this before you and I. Uh, Nicole has brought us back together twice.
Wow. Wow.
in her 36 years.
That's amazing.
And
Who's the thread?
so
That's a thread.
it
Mhm.
is. And so um she was going to get married, and she had been with the same, they'd been together since they were seniors in high school. And they got engaged, and she was like, I want to take Joey to meet Mitch. um and so I was like, okay. And Mitch and I hadn't talked for a minute. And so I was like, okay, so I got everything set up, did all the visiting forms or whatever. And we went to the prison. He was back at Vacaville. So he's back at Vacaville where we got married. Do you know what I mean? It's all
History. A
nostalgic.
lot
It's
of history. A
it's
lot of history.
historical. Yeah. So we go to the visit, and Nicole sees him, and she just starts bawling. And he's hugging her, and he's like, I'm so happy to see you. And they're just like, I'm just watching them, and I'm just like, this is crazy. And Nicole had been up. She'd gone up. She went up lots of times, but obviously this is very pivotal, right? And so, she's like, I wanted you to meet Joey. They meet, and we go to leave. It was a wonderful visit. We had a great time, lots of conversation, lots of really good. And so we walk out, and Joey looks at me, and he goes, that's her husband now. And he looks at me, and he goes, you guys, the energy between you guys is like crazy. And
Right.
I'm all,
Right.
really? And
Right.
he goes, yeah, like he's like, I almost wanted to like move. And he's like, it's just really something
It was
between the two.
intense. Well, it never left. I mean, it didn't
Yeah.
leave.
Yeah.
It never left. So so you called it quits. What was life like for you during that time? And did you gradually start to talk again
We always
later?
did. So in that time so if we didn't talk, we did. We always ended up talking. If we didn't see each other, we'd always end up seeing each other. So it
Mhm.
was never it was hard because you know what, I'm living out here, I'm doing my thing, whatever. But the thing is that, you can meet thousands of people. You can meet different, you have different walks, different times in your life, different walks of life. But the thing was, uh, it sounds corny, but it's 100% true. Mitch is my 100% soulmate. Like
No, it doesn't sound
I
corny.
knew
Of
it. I
course.
knew it from the
Obviously.
very beginning.
Obviously.
So I just couldn't stay away. Like I couldn't. Do you know what I mean? Like it
Right.
just was always in the back. But again, another thing that, people don't understand, that's hard unless you walked in these shoes,
Of course.
is when you're with somebody that has a life sentence, uh that's like forever.
Yeah.
That's not a what happened to Mitch with Mitch getting out is a freaking miracle. Hands down.
Yeah.
You just don't like, when you get to the point of just being, parole denial, parole denial, parole denial, parole denial. And the way I'm saying it is the way it makes you feel, but stretch that out over 32 years.
Yeah. What you look back on it, those denials, and he said it, he's talked about it, and he
Yeah.
talked about it a little bit with me.
Yeah.
Those denials, he just wasn't, not that he wasn't ready, but he just didn't figure out his way yet. What was it? Because it seems almost like you got two different people here. You got a guy who's so solid
Right.
with you and Nicole as a
Right.
family. He knows that end, and then he has to go back and be the fighter
Yep.
and the person to, I want to do my thing, in prison. And what do you think was the biggest part for him uh, after he got denied X amount of times? What happened there?
He would go to a super dark place.